It's time for the 32081 Scoreboard Show. Let's recap the latest weekly scores and highlights from around the county.
And welcome back to another edition of the 32081 as we carry on with our preseason football hype. And I am very excited to welcome the head coach of the St. Augustine Yellow Jackets to the show. And rumor has it he bleeds maroon out of one arm and yellow out of the other. Head coach Brian Braddock. Coach, thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Todd. Thanks for having me.
Coach, before we get started, I want to address something that you have firsthand knowledge of, and that's about the atmosphere at St. Augustine, and here's why. One of the things I love about the St. Augustine football field stadium, you kind of see it over at Nice, they only have one, is that I love the old concrete stands. You know, you see them over at Mandarin, you see them at different schools, and none of these like aluminum bleachers. Nothing wrong with aluminum bleachers, but to me, it just gets really, really loud in a situation like that. And I'm just kind of wondering if you can explain to someone what the electricity is like at a St. Augustine High School football game on a Friday night.
Yeah, no, it's pretty great. I take a lot of pride in the fact that like you referenced that we've got, real's not the right word, but that we've got, facilities, from another time, and those facilities were made, with for more cost or whatever the reason was, but they were made with a different intention, and it's pretty obvious. I'm really grateful that we've got the big concrete stadium, and it's a real stadium. We don't have the aluminum bleachers and all of that stuff, and everybody's always trying to save money. So as all the newer schools go up, you just see more and more of the aluminum and those things, and I get it, but I'm very grateful that we've got the bones we've got at our facility, not just in the stadium, but in our weight room, our locker room, and to some degree, even our school building. But it's great. It's great. It's great to have a real stadium. It's great to have that atmosphere. Friday nights at Brumley Stadium are a lot of fun. They're always more fun if the team's good. So we have a big responsibility in making sure that that's the case. That's what draws people out and, gives them pride, that community pride that we seem to have at St. Augustine. So it's a big deal. Our stadium maybe feels a little more traditional, maybe a little older. We've purposely avoided the video board trend of the new age. We don't want that. We kind of like the feel that we have at our stadium. We want to be a blue-collar program. We're a blue-collar community, and, it just fits us. So we take a lot of pride in what we've got, and we're grateful for it.
So you said if the team's good, and you've been pretty darn good the last couple of years, Coach, and looking at this. I mean, you make a run, get to the state final appearance in 2023, and then last year, impressive record, 11-2 with your run. Your only loss was a great overtime game against Nice, and anyone that left that game early missed a great game. And then you dominated on the road 5-1. So would you agree that, with your success, and probably rightfully so, expectations have to be high for the Jackets this season? And we'll talk about the players in a little bit, but if that is the case, how do you and the rest of the coaching staff prepare the kids to have them stay focused on that season with the success they've seen in the last couple of years?
Yeah, it's really not that hard. We just attack each day. That's what we've got. So we do the best that we can with each day. And certainly I have to have a long-term outlook on everything that we do as the head coach. That's my responsibility. And I've got to, us as the adults have to know what the finish line looks like what we're trying to accomplish in the big picture. But what makes you successful doesn't change year to year, day to day. And it's just attention to detail and everything, attention to detail and everything in general, and not one thing in specific. So our kids, I think they feel a healthy amount of pressure, but that's fine. They embrace that and they enjoy that. And of course we do as coaches. A lot of us are alumni of St. Augustine High School. So we feel, that adds a little bit of pressure. And we've got a lot of people in our community who care a whole lot about what happens on Friday night. And that comes with a lot attached to it. But, I remind our players and I remind our coaches that when we hear from the community or when things aren't, opinions go both ways. They're not always flattering. And, the alternative, though, is to have a community that's apathetic or that isn't that excited. So I would rather have people excited about what we're doing, interested in what we're doing. And like anything else, we know that comes with, the good and the bad. And it's one of the great things about being at St. Augustine. There are a lot of people here, multiple generations deep, who care about what happens on Friday nights.
So, Coach, I'm getting ready for the show, and I followed you last year. I knew you guys were good, and I went back and I looked at some stats, and the stat that jumped right off the page at me right away was the fact that you scored 496 points versus giving up 214. And when people look at that stat, first of all, that's impressive. They go, can they do it again? Because, of course, Lachlan Hewlett, a great quarterback, great kid, comes from a great family, and other offensive players, have graduated and moved on. But when you sit there and you look at some of the weapons you have coming back, it's just like you reload. It's like an old Western movie. You just keep reloading your gun, because you've got to be excited. You've got Brent James, is going to be the under center, I assume, from what it's looking like. Then you got recent Miami commit Samorian Wingo, as well as the recent transfer of Julio Santiago on the wings. Trendall Anderson in the backfield. He's averaging 8-9 yards a game last year. You've got to be excited, even though you lost some players. You've got to be excited. It seems like to me that you've reloaded so well on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, we're encouraged. I think we have the opportunity to be outstanding on offense. I think one of the biggest things is we bring back a lot of guys up front who've played a lot of football, and we've got some really good football players up there. At quarterback, we've actually got two that have been doing a great job, pretty much since last season ended, and Brenton James, who you mentioned, and also Bennett Hunt, and both played at a really high level in our spring game. And we really believe we've got two guys that we can win any game on our schedule with. So that certainly is a blessing. And then, of course, with the guys we have outside with Samorian and Julio, and we've got some younger receivers that one's actually playing right now on ESPN, a freshman receiver out at the NFL Flag National Championships, and we've got and then we bring back both tailbacks from last year, and they're both outstanding players. So offensively, there's a lot of tools there. It's a good mix of guys having to step into bigger roles, but also a lot of guys who've played a lot on that side. So we're really excited about our ability to move the ball and score points this year.
So with that said, I also looked at that 214 number on the defense, and, of course, you can't score points without the ball. So I've got to ask you about the defense, because when I did the review on Max Preps, it looks like the defense registered 29.5 sacks against a national average of 13.4. As far as interceptions, 17 compared to 7 for the national average. And past defenses, this was amazing, 40 compared to a national average of 17. So it seems to me, not only do you have a potent offense when you get the ball, but the defense is keeping the opponent's sideline or the opponent's offense on the sideline, which is just giving you guys the opportunity. I mean, that defense just seems like it's rocking and rolling.
Yeah, we were fortunate last year. We just got better and better as the season went on, and ended up having a really nice season defensively. And we lost some very, very talented players. I think out of our two deep from last year's team, 15 or 16 of them were seniors out of the first 22 kids that would have gone in a game on defense. So, when you lose that many seniors, we lost 29 total as a team, but when you lose that many seniors, it's hard to replicate just the multiple years of training they've had. And we're going to be young everywhere on our defense. I think it's highly likely we'll have probably 2 senior starters. Our secondary is going to be sophomore, junior. Super athletic, very talented kids. We're really excited about them, but inexperienced. Last year we at different times we started 2 freshmen on defense, so those kids are back as sophomores, and at least they feel like veterans, even though they're not. But we've got a lot of questions to answer on defense for certain, and it's not quite the mix you would prefer. Like you really like the mix you have on offense, because those guys who have to step into new roles have a lot of guys who've done it around them. We don't have as much of that on defense, so I think there's going to be a little more on us. Bringing them along as coaches and understanding that there will be some lumps early on. You just hope that you minimize those and that they learn quickly from them. Excited about the kids we have on defense, just very, very young. There will be a lot of sophomores on the field this year.
So, Coach, you went 3-0 in District 3 and 4A, which was very impressive because that included Columbia, Clay, and Ridgeview. And then I also looked at your schedule overall for 2025, and you kick off at home against Palaca, which you won last year 42-6. Menendez, you then won 24-14. And you followed up by Bowles and Riverside, and then Nice, and then you get right into it with Columbia, Clay, Bartram, and Ridgeview. First of all, how tough is this district going to be this year for you? Because we always know Columbia is always tough. So, with that said, it seems like it's going to be a battle for you again this season.
Oh, certainly. And at the end of the day, like we take pride in playing a tough schedule, and we like to schedule a lot of, interesting games that are exciting for our kids. But first and foremost are those games that you don't have to schedule, which are your district games. Those are the ones that matter the most. So, because you want to, our first goal every year is to win our district and earn a playoff spot. So, Columbia brings back a lot of players from a team that athletically was massive and has a lot of talent. So they certainly will be formidable. There'll definitely be a challenge. I know that Clay has hired a new coach, and Coach Gierke, and I'm sure he's going to do a terrific job. It's a proud program, and looking forward to how they'll be this season. And then Ridgeview, last couple of seasons has had a tough go of it, but they're doing a good job there. And all those district games, you can't take any of them lightly, because all it takes is one slip up, and then all of a sudden your postseason fate is in jeopardy. So those are definitely the most important games of the season.
So the one game I want to ask you about on the schedule also is that September 19th game you have at Nice against Nice, because I know you were on the losing side of it, but that game last year was phenomenal on both sides. I mean, both teams played great. The kids played great. And it really was one of those games, like I really was in this area, and you would hear people say, were you at the game Friday night? And the one thing they were referring to was St. Augustine Nice, nothing else, because everyone was talking about how great of a game that was. Is that game kind of circled on the calendar a little bit, saying, okay, we kind of want this one?
No more so than any other game, and that's God's honest truth. Certainly the way that game went, not because it was Nice, not because it was a loss, but just the way that we played in the second half. Certainly that sticks with you a little bit. You learn a lot from that, and that was a disappointing night in that regard. It was such an unusual game that we played maybe the best half we played the entire regular season in the first half. And then, just didn't play the way we were capable of in the second half. A lot of credit to them, because they're high school kids and they're not going to play their best. And when we didn't play our best, they certainly took advantage of it and earned that win. That was a tough one, just kind of the way it happened. But Coach Drafts has done a great job at Nice. They've got a very good team. They're widely expected to be outstanding this year. They bring a lot of really good players back, so it'll certainly be an exciting game. But I'd be lying if I said that we're looking at that one now more so than we're looking at Ponte Vedra in our preseason classic, or one of the oldest rivalries in the state with Palaca, or a city rivalry with Menendez, and then of course going up to Bowles and the machine that they've got coming back this year, just loaded with Power 4 talent. So there's a lot of games to look at, so then the district games you talked about, and then, Bartram, the history with Bartram, and then, Mandarin, just loaded with talent to cap it off. So really, if we're looking at any one of those more than the other, there's a whole bunch of other games that will embarrass us, So
you do not have a light schedule, Coach. You do not have a light schedule at all.
And I do love it. It's fun. And our kids work so hard. And we got such great kids, and our coaching staff works really hard, and everybody's does. But we're fortunate enough that we're in a position where we feel like we can play those games and compete in those games, and we want to give our kids those opportunities. So I think it just adds a lot more. It just adds a lot more to the environment when there's a real chance you can go out and get your butt kicked. It adds to your preparation. It adds to the enthusiasm about the game. It just adds to everything. So our kids, they do everything they do so they can play in big time games. So we try to give them that opportunity as much as possible.
Does that also help the kids prepare? Because again, looking at your schedule, like you said, with one of those oldest rivalries with Palaca, and then you've got Nice and you've got Mandarin, you've got Bowles, especially going over to Bowles. Does that help the kids get ready for that tough district play? Because you're going to go right into Columbia, and like you said, they return some big boys over there. So is this tough schedule able to keep the boys focused?
For certain, absolutely. You hope that you get better when you get exposed, and good opponents expose you, and you hope you are good enough that you can expose them as well, any weaknesses they have, and you can find ways to win, especially in the first half of the season. But you improve the most when you get exposed. So those games are so vital from that perspective, and that enables us to improve rapidly, through the back half of August and then all through September. And I think our game with Columbia is the last week of September, and it's week 6. And once you get to that point, it's time. It's time to start winning meaningful games, and not that they're not all meaningful, but meaningful games that are securing playoff berths and things like that. So, for sure, there's a pragmatic side, like you're saying, that it prepares us, and then it's also a lot more fun.
Coach, my last question for you is this, and I like to ask all the coaches in the area when they're on the show, is when you look at the programs like St. Augustine, Menendez, you look at Beachside, how they've been improving over the years, Tucoy, Nice, Bartram, and Northeast Florida in general, it just seems like this area, as I've said before on other podcasts, is loaded with talent. And I was wondering if you could speak to that, to what you're seeing from a head coach's perspective when you go and you play or you see these other teams within the area.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would, the state of Florida has taken a beating a little bit in terms of attrition of quality coaches to other areas and other states, for whatever reasons. Those are all well documented. But so because of that, the state itself has really had to fight to try to keep up. But one place where that has not happened is in St. Johns County. St. Johns County is such a wonderful place to live. It's a great place to work. So I think St. Johns County kind of punches above its weight in terms of what the programs accomplish here on a statewide scale relative to other areas of our state. And I think that's the biggest compliment I can give to all the other head coaches in this county and the athletic departments and their staffs. And then there's a lot of motivated youngsters that come from great families in this county. And sports are important in this county, and really just high achievement is important in this county, and our county's good at a lot of stuff, not just sports. And so I think all that together just creates a situation where you've got 8 schools that all have quality programs, and therefore you just don't see those rough scenarios that maybe you see in other parts of the state. Doesn't mean we all win all of our games, and doesn't mean we all get it right, but it's definitely a quality county, and I have a lot of respect and admiration for the programs throughout our county. And you have to be ready. You saw that last year. You have to be ready. It's not shocking when you see county quote unquote upsets. It's not surprising because all the teams are capable of beating one another, so it makes it fun.
Coach, I can't say thank you enough for being on the show, and I look forward to covering you more this season in depth, as we've heard from people saying, hey, we want to hear from more schools, than just the ones in the 32081. So we'll be doing that. And again, I really appreciate your time, and thank you for giving us a little bit of a sneak peek into the Jackets season in 2025.
Yeah, absolutely, Todd. Thank you for having me on.
And once again, thank you to Coach Brian Braddock for stopping by the studios to talk St. Augustine football. Don't forget to catch them in action as they start off their season on Friday, August 22nd at 7 o'clock as they host Palatka. And they will also be hosting Menendez the following week, Friday night, August 29th, also at 7. So be sure to get out and support the Jackets. Once again, I'm the Todd, and thank you for listening to the 32081.
Thank you for listening to the 32081. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Please don't forget to subscribe to the show so you can join us for the next episode.
I never miss an episode. It's the best.
Until next time, take care.